Shalom, hello, and welcome to our online Haaretz mini-fest within the online edition of this year's Jerusalem Film Festival. In a series of interviews, we, meaning Haaretz journalists, will be talking to the directors and producers of some of the most intriguing films in the festival. Today I have the pleasure of hosting on this fine screen Danny Maddin, the director of the great movie Beast. Hi Danny, how are you?
How's it going? Hey, going well.
So good night here from Tel Aviv and good morning for you, right, in LA?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah, getting things started over here.
So as I was saying, like for me, or I'll start with this kind of, your movie Beast is a very intelligent, I think, kind of aesthetic take on the effects of technology and specifically the performance or kind of the performative outcome of living in a social media kind of world. And each character performs their kind of stereotype or character in a very explicit way. So Nito and Adam in their videos, and Krista in like very more direct performance in her theater class, but also in reality. On the other hand, the movie is also very much about video and kind of online video culture. And I think together this creates a very accurate portrayal of the effects of new media, be it video, digital cameras, or YouTube, and on youth and by proxy society. So I just kind of want to start with what is the reason behind this focus on performativity, like which at times, you know, especially with Krista, it almost feels like almost video dance, you know what I mean? Like there was something like so movementy about her. So what was kind of the logic behind that?
Well, I think for me, it's such an interesting time for all of that, too. I mean, humans have always had our performative, versions of ourselves and our kind of more, the sort of unfiltered versions of ourselves. But I think in centering a story around a high school girl who's kind of learning about the world and learning about how the world has teeth, but through performance, she's trying to get at the truth of something through performance. But then we're also in this time where people are really falsifying themselves with their performances online and things like that. So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting kind of chemistry to throw all that together and try and tell a story.
So Krista, I think that's really true that her character kind of like, and I think that also kind of harkens back to, just generally like theater as a media and kind of her belief that, the theatric praxis has some kind of redeeming quality to it. But I want to ask more specifically about Nido and Adam, because like for me as someone who grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, like Nido was a real throwback to like the early mini DV days, you know what I mean? Like the skate culture of kids with like fish cams. And Adam also seems like just a classic kind of artifact of the YouTube culture. So same question, I was like, what is the logic of their aesthetic and their performance?
Yeah. I think the Nido character falls into all the trappings that myself and I think most like teenagers fall into, which is just like, where do I fit in? Like, what am I doing? Like, who am I gonna hang out with? Like, what's gonna define who I am? And I think also through that kind of like, he expresses himself through skateboarding and through like physicality, and I think that those things are sort of video worthy, like in a sense, like Nito like earns time on video more than the other characters maybe.
Interesting.
And then for Adam, I think you said it with like we're going for that kind of classic YouTube pitfall of just changing what your message is in order to try and maximize the number of subscribers that are that you can get. I don't know. There's this bizarre currency that's happening with that nowadays that I think stresses people out in maybe new ways, or at least like as far as technology goes, more access to our stresses in that way. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think my favorite scenes were the ones where Adam kind of hate scrolls through the comments of his own videos, and I think my favorite favorite scene in the movie is that great scene where Adam looks for a YouTube video about how to make viral YouTube videos, which I think is just such a kind of like recursive kind of YouTube logic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think all of those kinds of things add to the kind of homogenization of what YouTube videos are.
That's true.
You're looking at YouTube videos for how to make a YouTube video, and then it's like you're in this echo chamber. So
yeah, but again, like it also does link back to me to kind of prior art forms or prior kind of things. So like again, like I think if you contrast like the video and the skateboard with like the camera and the gun, so that to me was a really kind of potent thing in the movie. This whole idea of like. You get what I'm saying? There's a parallel there almost, no?
Yeah, no, I like that connection there. I mean, that's part of it too. And in writing these characters, trying to essentially taking three different stories and putting them together, you find a lot of those parallels and different layers in how they connect. And yeah, and hopefully it does speak to things outside of just exactly right now what's happening on the internet and with the youth, you know.
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of like my kind of favorite question, but just like my kind of what interests me. Did you, because you said it, your movie's about youth, but also about kind of like social media in a certain sense. Do you think your movie is about technology? And was that like one of the themes that you were really like explicitly hoping to touch on, or is that just a derivative of youth?
Yeah, I think it's like we were kind of saying before. It's like this idea of, if you're going to tell a story about the pressures of being in high school and kind of growing up and coming of age right now, like you can't ignore the way that technology fits into things. So I didn't set out to make a movie that was very techy, but I think in telling the story, it's unavoidable, and so I figured, hey, let's embrace it and let's really consider that as we tell this story.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is because I noticed there's this great like plane motif in the movie, right? Like the plane is this like noisy, thunderous kind of like omnipresent thing that initially kind of indicates that it's a shitty part of town, but then kind of morphs. So I don't know, that to me made it feel like it was about technologies old and new, like guns, planes, that kind of level.
Yeah, and again, one more way to connect the characters and connect the world, and in a sense, like you're observing, like connecting hopefully different time periods, you know, that so that at least it's hopefully universal.
So what can you elaborate on that?
Someone can relate. What's that?
Elaborate about the time aspect that you just were talking about. Like
no, just like what you're bringing up, the idea that it's not specific, like exactly this time, you know. We shot this movie in 2018 and took a long time finishing it, and I that's definitely a worry to say, hey, by the time this is done, is this stuff still going to be relevant, you know? So hopefully, like, it is working for people. It could be 2015 or 2025 or
yeah, for sure. So I do want to kind of talk about one technology that is a bit more prevalent in the movie, which is guns. Your brother, who plays Adam, just does simply an amazing role, and I love that, like, that it wasn't a school shooting. Like, I was sure it was going to go for like that was where the movie. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling now. I love that the kind of his thing is not a school shooting. So I'm just intrigued, like, like, is the gun a form of, like, you know, kind of like a camera thing, or am I just being a cinema dork and overreading this, and it's actually just like kind of your direct line between, you know, shoot 'em up culture?
Right. Well, the idea wasn't to tell a story of some kind of like gargoyle incel kind of like just like withering away in front of the computer. I feel like that's not what we were trying to say. We're trying to tell a story about a human being who has this hobby and how the world around that hobby can lead to something so devastating.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm less interested in the sort of like very, very rare case of the person who does just like get very angry and take the gun out, you know, to express themselves. I was more interested in just kind of the culture around it, and how a hobby can end up being, or just your interests can end up being destructive to you. I mean, it's the same with Nido, and ultimately, I mean, if we're talking spoilers, it becomes the same for Krista as well. So.
Yeah, but Nido, as you said, I think I love that you said that. Like, he kind of earned it. Like, he was like, you know, he's a raw talent, right? Like, he kind of, you know, invents himself, and he carries all this kind of stuff, like, on his own person. Like, he's also very not privileged. But your
brother, he's the only one who's not trying, really. You know, he just walks out and he emanates, you know, talent and something that people want to watch, you know.
Exactly. In that sense, like, him being recorded, and I liked also that there wasn't that much, like, you didn't delve too deep into, like, you know, how he's recording this, how he's editing this kind of stuff, like, where it's just like, you know, he, in that sense, you know, he's just worth a video, you know what I mean? Like, his moves are good enough, his skate skills are good enough. And Adam, we see him struggling so hard to kind of turn his hobby or turn his passion into like, you know, in like an edifice that he can, I don't know, like something, you know what I mean, like a business. And
right.
yeah.
Right, and it's the same for the Krista character as well. At least we don't see her kind of like being as pathetic as maybe some of the moments with Adam, but we see her trying. We see her, you know, in the library reading different monologues and practicing in front of the mirror, and yeah, we get to see their processes. So sort of, there were some ways that I wanted to draw the parallel between Krista and Adam, and then other ways where, you know, it's Nito and Adam or Nito and Krista. So yeah, I don't know. For me, it's kind of like this kind of wacky scramble of a graph in my mind of how everything relates, and hopefully influence each other to make the drama more vital.
Interesting.
In a way.
And how is I'm just curious, how is it working with your brother? Like,
great. It's really great. I mean, I wrote, this is not an easy character to play. It's very, it lives in gray area, and there's a lot of, it kind of hits all sides of the emotional spectrum. And I knew that Will's such a great, like, natural talent, and he works so hard that I knew that I could like challenge him with something like this, and he would step up to it and make it something really spectacular. But yeah, I think there's a shorthand, and we grew up, you know, with the same taste, watching the same films and in the same family, having those conversations. And so yeah, there's kind of an amazing shorthand that comes with that. And you don't have to be so like as tender with Will as you would be with somebody else, you know, because it's like, hey, like, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we love each other, we respect each other, we're going for the same thing, you know. That's never a question. So.
And how is just because you mentioned like working with the other characters, like Nito is just, I'm intrigued by that actor as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were friends. Like I met Jose Angeles, who plays Nito, through our friend Sean in the Bay Area up in Oakland, and I just met Jose again, like just raw talent. I kind of like saw his videos and was kind of like blown away by him, and we just became buds and kind of skateboarded around and stuff, and then same with Shirley, who we cast, and we made a short film called Krista, which incorporates some of the elements of her character in the film. And we cast her because we were filming it there at the high school where she was attending. So we cast some kids from the drama department, and she came out and just absolutely wowed us. And so then through the process of making that short, and then we worked together on a couple other projects, she became a friend and someone we wanted to continue working with. So yeah, so I wrote the 3 lead roles for those 3 people.
Interesting.
And yeah, so for me, it kind of like features a lot of their own personalities that I'm really drawn to, but also pushes them in ways that I wanted to see them pushed as humans. So.
And just out of curiosity, also, how did so you have you got like a big name producer? I'm curious how Alec Baldwin got involved in the project.
Yeah, so Alec and his producing partner, Casey Bader, they saw the short film Krista on Vimeo, and I guess reached out and said, hey, you know, if you ever have anything, you know, longer form that you're working on. And I said, hey, we're actually turning Krista into a feature film. This is the one, let's go. And then, so they kind of jumped on and helped us kind of round out the finances, and we're just kind of great partners with everything all the way through release and stuff. So.
I'm asking also just because there is, like, in a sense, it is a political film. I think it has a certain political undertone, maybe not partisan politics, but like politics in the kind of wider, hardcore sense of politics in society. And I'm intrigued in that sense by like what you want people to take away from the film, and that I was kind of trying to link back to Alec Baldwin in the sense where like, why do you think that this type of a project would have interested him?
Yeah, I like to think of it less as a political story or a message, and more as like a social message. Yep. If it involves politics, it's how those politics affect people, and I think that's the thing I'm interested in, because again, you get into such a tangled web of people. People bring so much weight and baggage to the politics of things, but I think we can all agree, if we're telling specific stories of human beings and how those politics affect those human beings. So that's my interest for sure, you know. And I think Alec coming in and him being a politically active voice, I think that it just kind of coincidentally falls under his stances on a couple things. But I think more so he and Casey were interested in working on a powerful movie. So I think that's the grounds from which they came to this project.
Yeah. No, I also agree. I think for me, I meant political again in the societal sense of it, and I think that it is a very powerful film in that it does kind of show you maybe even just like the psychological effects of, you know, living with technology and kind of filming yourself and being aware of how your kind of images and truly how destructive that is. Is that what you kind of hope people take away from like the film as well?
Yeah. I mean that's part of it. I don't like to spell it out too clearly, but the idea of not preaching something to somebody, just showing like, hey, here are these people, here's the situation, and it kind of hopefully breeds conversation, because then some people can say, oh, actually that person was in the right, or I can't believe that they did that, and there's a moral kind of gray area that hopefully people can have a conversation after they watch it and come to their own conclusions. Yeah.
For sure, I think it's very, very successful in that way. And you just kind of mentioned this before, that you're not that much on social media. So I'm just kind of curious. You do seem very kind of media savvy, though. Like if you know, there's like you're using the Vimeo, so like there is this kind of overlap, like cinema and cinema makers like yourself. You do need to kind of be in this new media arena as well, so you can do your old media. You know what I mean? Your classic media.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, but I think that for me, it is so much of it. It is. It's like learning a new language or something. You know, it's kind of fun to just study that and to think about how it affects your personality and how it comes out. I mean, it's the same thing when you're learning a language. Like, you know, I'm a very talkative, non-shy person, but when I'm somewhere trying to speak French, you know, I suddenly become very shy and less confident, you know, and I think it's worth exploring through whatever lens that personality challenge comes from, you know.
Yeah. So I'm just again kind of same question. Like, did your personal history? Like, you got off directing like technologically. That was like what the DV days, that like the beta days. Like, where are we on the kind of?
Yeah. I was you know, mini DV. We used you know, Canon GL1 was the camera of choice. Basically all through film school, and then I started after I graduated film school was the real push with the sort of DSLR era, the Canon 70 5D, but definitely came up with like just those small handheld cameras and try to carry that base into a more cinematic language. I think that's something that interests me, is that kind of like agility in the camera, and I don't know, maybe there's a visual look to it that I try and I don't know, maybe unconsciously hold on to.
I think with Nido a bit, no? Like, I really saw that aesthetic culture there. As someone, I guess we're kind of the same ages, but like, I got that same aesthetic as well. Like, I felt that I recognized that aesthetic that I remember from like from skate videos and just early DV culture.
Yeah. And I think it's a fun mix to put that with the sort of like the selfie age that we're in now, the sort of like people filming themselves with the iPhone and stuff, and then cutting that in with that sort of like, you know, the skate videos that I grew up with.
Yeah. And again, juxtaposing that to theater, when it's just like an old school media.
Right, timeless. Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's really interesting. For me, really, like, there was almost this kind of medial link, which I think a lot of this tech stuff, usually people kind of feel it's ahistorical, you know, like, YouTube's always been around. Like, no, it's not, you know. Like, it's not always been around. All these things. Like, so it's just different kind of aspects. Is there anything else you want to kind of touch on in terms of your perspective and kind of the next projects, this kind of stuff?
Well, I think, I mean, the process-wise for, I don't know exactly who the audience is, but I'm sure they are interested in the behind the scenes of it. I mean, we made this movie, the main house of the film is where Will and I grew up. That's, our parents still live there.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we filmed at the school where my mom is a teacher, and all locations from like neighbors and friends, and like, it was a real production for the community to come around and to really help. And, you know, you'll see like that there are like 200 background actors, you know, and all of those are like kids who go to the school or neighbors or friends. You know, it was just like everyone came out and was so supportive, and hopefully that spirit is imbued in what the film is. So so when I see it, it feels like a home movie to me, and it's really nice to like see all those familiar faces and people who feel like family. It
does feel that way. Like it does have a certain, like, you know, kind of Heimish, homey kind of vibe to it. That's nice. Was that is that something that you like always wanted to, like you knew you wanted to also produce it about the kind of places that you were like part of your life? Like,
yeah,
you wrote
I
it
think
for that?
Especially for this story, it made a lot of sense to go back to where I grew up and to imagine this scenario happening from the bedroom window that I had growing up, you know.
Yeah.
And for this story in particular, it really helped me to kind of like slip into the skin of the characters.
And what do you see yourself doing next? Like, what's next for you, as they say?
As of right in this bizarre pandemic world, you know, I've been taking on a lot of animation work lately. So I kind of came up as an animator as well, and so that's been really nice. I feel very fortunate to have that as a job right now. But also writing, you know, it's a good time for kind of like to be studious and to be just typing away at a couple of screenplays, and so we'll see what kind of bears fruit as the world kind of gets healthy again and opens up, and just trying to kind of ride the pandemic wave right now, and not feel like it's a momentum crusher or something like that. Really try and stay creative through it all.
That sounds like good advice, and we'll keep following you closely. Great job. Great film. Seriously, thank you.
Thank you so much, Omar.
A pleasure.
Good talking to you.
Good talk.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.